Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of Playing World of Tanks. I'm AJ, and today we'll be looking at a game that I had in my FV4202, which was the British Tier 10 medium tank. Now, it was currently replaced by the Centurion Action 10 on the NA server, which I had a couple of games in today, and I kind of think that is a very good tank, though has different characteristics than the FV4202 did. But that is getting ahead of ourselves. So what is the FV4202, or what was the FV202 rather good at? It was really good at ridge fighting, which is excellent on this map. Now at first I go towards the middle of the map in order to spot anybody who's coming through the middle, and generally nobody does, but I just thought if somebody did, then we would give him a nice welcome over here. Now the FV4202's turret armor is rather interesting. It is actually not that thick. The thing is that when this tank is on a ridge and looking down at something or firing at something, it is the ridge that sort of like amplifies the turret armor of this thing. The other thing that you want to keep in mind, or you should keep in mind about the FV22, it actually has a commander's cupola, which can be pinned if somebody's really careful with their shots. So you want to be careful about that as well. Now, since the enemies are spotted in the north, I decided now is the time to sort of like move away from my current position, since it's actually not giving anything else. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go north and help out that flank against the enemies that are moving in that direction. Now, this is one of the advantages when you're driving a medium tank. Now, FV4202 isn't particularly fast, but it can still relocate rather quickly than some of the other heavy tanks in the game. Now, if you see me hugging ridges randomly, or just being next to rocks, is because there's an RD in play, and seeing how the XPM is a rainbow on both of our teams, I was guessing that the RD would be in for perhaps ignoring a lot of other targets to shoot at me for most of the game, which actually thankfully didn't happen. And so over here, what I decided to do is I decided to move up and towards the JPZ, and in the process I see that there was a T69 spotted on my right flank. I take a shot at him, and at this time I make a mistake of actually just going forward, thinking that the T69 wouldn't be interested in shooting me, but he actually reverses, and the RNG gods give him 3 easy shots on my tank. Now the AMX-30 also comes in to join the party, and I managed to put one into him, and the T69 gets away with his life for now. Now I reverse back out, and at this point I kind of like figured maybe I would go help the JPC and the Object 416, which were in the north holding off a T57 and an M26 Pershing by themselves. Here I turn around for a split second, seeing that the MX-30B is moving up and wanting to put a shot into him. Except the T110E4 beats me to it, so I decide to go back and help the 2 tanks in the north, and I arrive just in the nick of time because the T57 actually starts unloading on the JPZ, and due to his poor shooting, he actually only manages to put 2 of his 4 shots into the JPZ. Now at first I was only going to punish the T57 for such an overcommitment. I was not actually going to stick around and actually just YOLO into the T57, but since I saw the JPZ was actually coming, I decided now was a good time to sort of push into the T57. And T57 again misses a lot of his shots. I put 1 shot into the side of the T57, setting him on fire, and just finding where I actually had pinned him earlier, I put a shot just right next to him and actually take him out. Now the M26 Pershing just tries to run away, but he's trapped between two tier 10s behind him and 1 tier 10 in front of him, and we make short work of him relatively quickly. Now one other thing, if you had noticed, is I switched to Hesh rounds briefly to actually hit him in the back, just because the Hesh rounds actually do more damage on average, and since his rear armor was facing me, I decided it was a great opportunity to test out how good or how high of a damage roll can I get on the Hesh rounds. Now I decided to take a shot at the T110E3, which was progressing up in the middle of the map, but a better opportunity presents itself in the I7, who I take a shot and actually pen in the side and back up, because I wasn't so sure whether I was going to be spotted after taking that shot or not. Now what I decided to do is I decided to knock down a couple of trees and take refuge in the bush that was around the corner, just because if I'm going to hit something, then it's easier for me to not be spotted for my first shot. And you'll see why in a couple of seconds that actually pays off in dividends. Now the I-7 is progressing along who was normally progressing, and he gets taken out by the JPZ relatively soon. Now at this point I see the T110E3 in front of me. The T110E3 knows that he's been spotted, but he doesn't know what's actually spotting him. He kind of just figures that there's tanks in the front that are looking down on him, and that's how he's spotted. Now I'm gonna wait until I have a really good shot on the E3. I'm not gonna waste firing at the E3 wherever, and not penning him and essentially giving away the element of surprise in this case. Now at this point I come up again, but this time I managed to track the T110E3 in place, and at this point the poor guy literally can't do anything if he hasn't a repair kit. I reload just fast enough where I can just keep him in place indefinitely and take him out. Now at this point there's a tank that's spotted in the north, but I trust my RD to sort of like take care of him. At this point what I was trying to figure out was if somebody was actually coming behind us over here, and that's what I was trying to do. And also the fact that since the FV4202 is a medium tank, I should not be facing whatever's left frontally anyways. A secondary consideration in this case was also to take out the RD, which was still in play and could actually wreck a lot of our big slow TDs, and that's why you see me like taking a very wide route back towards the enemy's cap. And at this point I was spotted by the E4, and the E100 takes a speculative shot. I pin his side, but at this point I have no interest in sticking around. I know if I stick around, the E100 is just literally going to just chase me down. So as soon as I take this shot, I decide, I'm gonna just run and take out the ERD first and then deal with the E100. If the E100 decides to chase me, he's just wasting his time. And that was sort of like my intention at this point. The E4 just keeps on progressing forward, trying to deal with the two TDs that were spotted still in our cap. Now as I relocate, I see the E4, and I know the E100 actually was turning around when he was last spotted towards me, so I'm guessing he had decided or that he was going to chase me rather than provide support for the E4 that was going into the base, which is a good or bad decision depending on who you are. I take a shot at the E100, I track him, and at this point, instead of sticking around, because I know the E100 is looking in my direction, I actually decide I should move forward and take out the artillery or spot him at the very least, and this is in turn going to help us tremendously. And luckily enough for me, I already spotted near the north, near the southern western part of the map, and I take him out and decide to move forward. Now I know the E4 is still pushing forward, and his back is going to be exposed towards my side. At this point I could have switched to the premium HESH rounds to do maximum damage to the E4, but the other consideration was if I miss or if I don't hit where I'm supposed to, they might do 0 damage, and that was something I was not actually sort of like wanting to have. So I put 1 round in the E4, and he kind of like realizes that there's somebody behind him, but he can't actually turn in this position that he's in, because if he starts turning, one of the TDs is just gonna smack him in the face and take him out. Now the E100 keeps following me to this building right here. Now I decide that I guess this confrontation is inevitable. I reverse and take a shot at the E100, tracking him in spot and doing damage, and get behind the building. But the E100 has a really good repair crew and he gets out relatively fast. But at this point, like it's more or less even. Like if the E100 rolls high on me, he takes me out. But thankfully for me, our TDs make short work of him. So hopefully you enjoyed this video. Feel free to like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next episode of Playing World of Tanks.